evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, August 18, 2025 Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. We have a quorum, so we'll proceed. I do not believe there are any changes to the meeting agenda. I know of none.
No, on the CBA referral, that had been memo, we're not going to do tonight. That's all.
Okay, but it wasn't on the agenda.
It was not on the agenda.
Okay. You have Jim's meeting notes. Any questions or comments on the meeting notes?
I move we accept them.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. You have in draft form the August 4th minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to be made to the minutes?
Something.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Any correspondence or announcements? I don't know of any. So with that, we will move into the new applications this evening. We have 4 to consider. The first up is that of Andrea Novik, 349 Accurate Hook Road for a minor subdivision of 3 lots. Good evening, Mark.
You're here so often that I just run around.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mark Kaminsky. I'm here representing Andrea Novak for consideration of a 3-lot minor subdivision located on Active Hook Road. Jim, actually, if you could bring up great. Property is, perimeter of the property is located right here. And so it's on the easterly side of Active Hook Road. It's approximately 19.9 acres in size. It's in the RC5 zoning district. And this lot, this total lot, is actually based on the previous subdivision that was created as a previous minor subdivision. And so this application proposes subdividing this 19.9 acre lot into 3 parcels. So what exists on the property right now is residence. And so there's this is the residence, and there's several outbuildings and accessory structures that are on this proposed parcel. And I'll just bring it up at this time. In addition to application to this board for consideration of minor subdivision, there's also an application that to be heard this coming Wednesday by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The zoning administrator has determined that although the majority of these structures, actually all but one, were pre-existing and all had COs, the zoning administrator has required application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for location of all the, once again, here's the principal residence, location of these accessory structures in front of the principal residence, and then also, once again, a total number exceed 3, which is allowed on a residential parcel, and also the sum of the accessory structures also exceed the allowable 15 square feet. So that application is being run concurrently with this subdivision application. So on Actor Hook Road, there's an existing driveway that goes to the existing residence. Part of this application is to convert this existing driveway into a common driveway, which will provide access to this lot right here, the lot the most northerly on the property. In addition, once again, you can see right here, this location of the most southerly lot, the proposed residence location. It will be an individual driveway serving this property. Both access points have been reviewed and approved by the town of Rhinebeck Highway Department. And in addition to that, some field testing has been done for consideration of on-site sewage disposal. Obviously, I had worked on it back in 2000 in Rhinebeck, and gained health department approval on this parcel. These two parcels will require, once developed, will require approval by the Dutchtown Department of Health. And so, actually, after further testing, this location is going to be satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal. This is not. It actually found an area further to the west of the proposed residence for this one southerly lot. All lots meet the requirements of the RC5 zoning district with regard to area, setbacks. Setback lines are shown on the plan. Minimum lot widths at the building lines. All zoning requirements have been satisfied for this proposal. And then finally, in addition to that, there's as I said before, development of a common drive easement that will lead to this. So there's an easement, there'll be an easement and maintenance agreement associated with that common driveway. The lots, the existing lots, as I said, 5 acres is the minimum requirement. All lots are in excess of 5 acres. In addition to that, I provided Jim some additional materials just to be able to present and discuss with the planning board this evening. One of the items that was brought up at the pre-conference meeting with the town was consideration sightline and location of the proposed structures along with adjoining structures. So I started to I use this as I didn't want us to submit new materials in advance of tonight's meeting, but I wanted to be able to demonstrate to the board some consideration given to sightlines. And so I provided a location of the subdivision and residences that are adjoining or nearby. And just giving a schematic right now, but the intent is to be able to provide sightline profiles to those existing structures. When I review of the zoning code and actual conversation at the pre-app, this proposed residence is located on the highest point on this property, and so there was discussion about developing, a sightline analysis and some consideration for that. So in addition to doing sightline profiles from proposed residences or proposed construction of residences to existing, in addition to doing that sightline profile, we'll also provide a visual sightline analysis with some photographs taken in various locations. So it's intended for those materials to be submitted to this board for the next week. Jim, what the other, and so what this plan represents, there's also some discussion at the pre-app with regard to development of the site. And so the shading that's represented on this plan, the light shading, are all slopes less than 25%. And then the small darker areas are those slopes greater than 25%. So there was some discussion about consideration for net density on the property, and for consideration of doing a conventional subdivision. And so these slopes only represent about an acre in total out of the 19 acres. So all development is avoiding steep slopes with the development, and once again, trying to place all these new locations of the residents and locations that are not only respectful to this property, but also the adjoining neighbors.
Jim?
So I took a look at this. I think it's pretty straightforward. The only real item that I found is related to the fact that when we're looking at a subdivision like this, conservation subdivision would be the permitted use. So the only way to move forward with this application as a traditional subdivision, the lots that Mark has shown here, is through the minor subdivision in addition to a special use permit which has been applied for. So there's additional review criteria that the planning board can consider when looking at this. So the proposal is for the conventional subdivision through the special use permit process. And that special use permit process provides the board with the ability to deny this request and require a conservation subdivision if you find that there are issues related to certain criteria in section 12543D3, which includes steep slopes, water resources, agricultural lands, forest management, water sewer, critical environmental area, which doesn't pertain to this, and then proximity to open space, historic structures and sites, view sheds, things like that. And that's part of what we discussed on the pre-con. I took a look at it. I think overall, and against the board's decision, I think the disturbance seems pretty minimal related to the addition of the two lots. And we have the shared driveway. Part of this property now is in Ag District 20. I don't know if the idea is to try and keep things agricultural or not, but if we were to, say, cluster things in the more open space areas, I think that would take away from the ability to retain Ag District 20 potentially and any use that way. So again, there are trade-offs. So it really comes down to a discussion of, the special use permit criteria and everything else to do that. But those are the main issues I found. I think that as proposed as the traditional subdivision lot, I think it does minimize the impact to the extent possible, given the lots that are proposed on the site. That really is it.
Well, excuse me, one other note for the planning board. In the applications that Jim just mentioned, I submitted all the applications and, accompanying typical documents. I just want to note, so in the EAF, I did the New York State DEC Environmental Resource Map, or EAF. It shows wetlands. There's no wetlands on this property. There's wetlands on the adjoining properties. So, just with our recent, having JD determination for the DEC, there are no identified core or New York State DEC wetlands on the property.
Planning board members, questions?
Yes. You have frontage on that north lot in two different areas.
So that north lot, this.
Yeah. Any reason not to have a separate driveway?
Excuse me?
Any reason not to have a separate driveway? Just for long term?
So took a look at two driveway locations for that lot prior to making this determination. This is really steep through there.
Okay.
Right? Steep and sight line is not adequate at this location. Took a look at a location closer to here. However, once again, have a crossing through here and then steep access to once again, it was the preferred location for a home site with minimal disturbance both to this property and also, as I said before, consideration of the adjoining neighbors.
Okay, because when I look at on mine, it looks like the main residence, I call it lot 2, maybe the middle lot, has a pool to the left of where the driveway is going to go.
Yes.
It just seems like an odd setup. And then other information, I'd say the north lot is quite wooded. It's all woods, just so the board is aware.
Yeah, and also, actually, this southerly lot is heavily vegetated.
Yeah.
Not as large a standing forest as this one, but heavily vegetated. Once again,
So when I look at that, I do see there's a disturbance in this is built out, but that's it.
Anyone else? I think that would be something that would be closely looked at in the site
Of
visit.
course, yeah.
Anyone else? procedural resolution?
Draft procedure resolution for the board's consideration for the application by Andrea Novick for minor subdivision under Town Code Chapter 101 and special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 for a conventional subdivision of an existing 19.92 lot into 3 lots at 349 Ackerhook Road in the RC5 zoning district. Accepting the application, supporting documents is adequate for further review. Class energy actions unlisted under seeker, which according to environmental quality review is not required. We'll schedule the public hearing on the application for September 15th. We'll send this to the CAB for review and meet 2 times by the end of the site.
Motion to approve the resolution? So moved. Motion, second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion. Craig and
Thank you.
Sean will be in touch. Thank you. The second new application this evening is that of W. Gary D., 399 Mill Road, site plan review for a storage shed installation. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hi, folks. So it's a fairly simple application, I think. It's for a storage shed just to the north of my properties. So this is 399 Mill Road here. And there's the proposed location of the storage shed. It's on our gravel pad, and I've chosen to put in whole house electric generation and our propane storage tank at the same time in the same place. That's the sort of shed we're putting in. That's not the colours, but it's a premium shed with cedar horizontal siding in it. So the house is cedar-shaped house, and over a few years this should silver out to look similar to the house. This is the standard. If you go down to the next one there, it's just the standard build shed from the manufacturer, just showing what it looks like from the front. 10 by 14 feet. It's got double door entrance for the drive-in tools. It shows all the elevations, etc. Plan of the shed. There's a drawing of the shed on the pad showing the location of the, so that's north is in this direction here. That's 320 gallon propane tank. This is a 18 kilowatt generator. This is the location. So here's the north end of the house here. It just so happens, and when somebody goes out to look at this, they will see there's a sort of natural dip in the land here. It might be from the construction days where they were building the house. This area is pretty heavily rock, bluestone formation. And just to note that it's a 4-acre lot, and there's 2 acres that are relatively flat, and then the ground shelves quite steeply away down to the kill. So this is the only place to really put a shed unless I was going to move it, way up on the property here, which is not required. So this is the current property. That's the approximate location of the shed, and an approximate size. It's 10 by 14, so 12 feet high. And when we do the shed colours, they will have one of the shades of cedar siding that will match it to. It will be white and then along with the house, so it will match with the house. That's just how it looks from the most exposed part of Mill Road. And then as you're coming in from Rhinebeck, there's some higher ground here, which sort of would obscure, I suspect, the propane tank, but it won't completely obscure the shed. It's a dip of about 4 feet. So in terms of the environment, obviously we've got the Rhinebeck, the Landsman Kill here, This is a little river system. The map shows two, there isn't, there's just one. So we are looking at what that is. Over in this area here, the DEC have got a little wetland, it's got a lot of frogs in it. So it's a couple of 100 feet from the house. I've sent a note off for DEC jurisdictional comment on it. We'll see what they say. That's just another closer diagram showing the site plan. This is the house came with two driveways. Both were just hard-packed gravel when I moved in, but they're now blacktop. Didn't extend them or anything, just blacktop the existing driveways that were there. And again, that's the location of the shed.
So I think a lot of the questions we had during the pre-con have been answered. You said you did apply for the JD, so that could take up to 90 days to come in. As we all know, we've been through that process a couple times now. Just want to make a couple comments. Typically on, and these are all technical issues, typically on a site plan we do require topography to be shown. Existing and proposed, we don't have topography on that site plan. I know it's relatively flat, but that's something we do typically want to require, or we do require on the plans. The cover letter noted that the pad was at least 400 square feet. It's shown as 600 square feet in area on the plans. The graph paper shows it being a total of 378 square feet. So just want to get consistency in the numbers. So if you take a look at that before the public hearing and just provide us with some updated information on the exact numbers you're proposing.
So the gravel pad itself, the builder said that when he puts it down, this is just a gravel pad. He likes to spread it out. He said his comment was that since it was just a gravel pad, the exact dimensions of it weren't critical.
Well, they're up to the planning board. It has to be shown on the
But
plans. It's the exact
how
size.
much leeway do I have in
Just show us what you want to do. Just tell us what you want
as
to do.
close as we can estimate it?
What you put on the plans is what has to go on the ground.
So let me just be clear.
Yeah.
So if I say to you, for example, I want a 350 gravel pad, it turns out to be 360, you will be unhappy.
That's up to the building department. That will be past the planning board, but the building department is out there to make sure that what you do is what's on the plans.
Okay, so I can speak to the building department to get really clear with them. Right, super.
You get out in the field and you find you need to do something a little different, it would be a field change. If the building department felt that it was significant, you might have to come back to the planning board for
That's
updated
fine.
plans. So really what you want to do should be on the plans exactly as you want it done, so you don't potentially have to come back. So just tell us what you want to do and just make sure the numbers are consistent in the information. The cover letter noted 4 inches of crushed stone, the graph showed 5 inches. Again, just let us know which one you want to do. And then adding some dimensions to the pad would be good. The other question that we had during the pre-con, I don't know if you provided it or not, was we wanted something from the tank installer to state that you don't need any kind of special approvals from DEC or others.
I'll send you
Do you
the,
have that? Okay, we do have that. I'll double check that one. So it should be good. So really, it's a scenic road, that's why we're seeing it, so it's a question of visibility primarily, and then I think just some consistency issues with some of the information.
okay. So on the subject of the topography, so I did ask if the tax mapping documentation which shows the topography was adequate for this. So that's on the zoning, I think it's on the zoning one. This one. There's the topographical map.
We require it on the site plan, something like that would have to be a waiver provided by the board.
So I can get the surveyor to use, to approximate the topographical map on the site plan.
That's what we request, yes.
That's fine. His comment was that if you go out there and you satellite it for the whole, for accuracy, it costs a fortune.
There are other ways it can be done.
And that's what he suggested, as long as you guys would accept something that's going to look very similar to that, you can put that, transpose that directly onto the drawing.
If he's willing to sign and stamp that with his name, that's
Fine.
more than adequate.
Super.
It just shows us what the topography looks like and what you're proposing to do in terms of,
Yeah, you can clearly see,
drainage of it.
you can sort of see from that map where the topography clearly falls off. It's roughly there.
So, just for the board's knowledge, so the JD is required because of the distance, but we do not have a need for a town dwelling permit. It's not that close. That's everything I have.
Planning board members?
The only thing I'd suggest is 4x4, usually on these ads, these 4x4s to tie everything in, then you have actual dimensions, then you don't have to worry about it. So instead of like the gravel falling down, you do like a 4x4 around everything, then that's where you drop the rock in. You'll see that it's more common, especially with these sheds. And then you have exact dimensions, just as
So
a rock.
they are using 4x4?
Well, usually, you know, right here, it just shows, basically just rock, just not, usually they take a 4x4 platform around the entire thing, right? And
You're
then-
are you talking about here?
Yeah,
Not there, yeah.
around the entire thing.
Around the perimeter.
They box it in, usually they box it and fill it with rock. And they
So
put
this
support material
company,
below.
this company sits the shed on 4x4s and then ask you if you want to mend the gravel up around it. The local builder here.
I was just suggesting that might be easier for you to do.
I'd rather not do that because my plan is, once it obviously doesn't look exactly like that, but my plan is to tidy up the gravel and maybe actually put some paving slabs on it. Right? With some plants and stuff like that, ferns, just to make it, to pretty it up a bit.
Okay. And then the tank is above ground, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it's a single tank?
It's a single tank, yes, so a lot of people put the couple of vertical
Yeah,
ones.
100 like gallon.
But I require a minimum of 5 days emergency power generation, so I need 320 gallon tank. It's a 350 gallon nominal tank, but it holds 320.
What's the ground like there? Is it rocky? Is it rocky?
Well, we don't quite know because it's sort of covered by grass, but eventually it's the tank will be placed on a slab. You know,
Yeah.
buy these slabs and you
Yep.
drop a slab to keep it level. Same with the generator.
100%.
So that holds it level. It sits about
And they're
4
all
inches off
within
the
that container, or the rock, correct? So like that outline that we're seeing right there is the outline of
The gravel.
the gravel, correct?
Yeah. That was the minimum, what that drawing was meant to represent, was the minimum gravel required.
Okay.
Is the septic tank and leach field indicated on the?
Yes. So that's the,
Okay.
that's it there.
Right, so you're nowhere near.
Nowhere near.
And also, it does drop off at the corner, like right around here, right?
From that pad, it drops off
So starting at the end of where you want to put the pad.
with
so
a
it's not-
couple of feet, yes, obviously, you don't want to put it right on the.
Yeah, well, on one side, if it kind of slopes away, you'll lose your gravel.
Correct.
Okay.
You mentioned that the property came with 2 driveways
Mhm.
and you blacktop over them.
Yeah,
Why did you do that?
because the gravel was mess.
Do you use that as a driveway?
All the contractors use it. And also, it's the current access for the existing propane supply to the house. Okay? Propane supply is right against that north wall there. It's the fuel oil is down in the garage end, right down to the south of the property.
And do you plan any landscaping to help obscure the view of the shed from the road?
So I'm not planning any landscaping because we think the shed's extremely attractive. That's why we spent the extra several thousand to put the cedar horizontal boards on it. So it should match the house quite, it's the same colour of roof, it'll have the same white sills and painted windows and the same mint green door. So we believe, my wife and I think it's actually an additionally attractive view to the property. Now, can we put some landscaping in? Yes, of course we can. The ground's a bit rocky and whatnot. It's all right to plant stuff that's fairly small, right? Because it grows into the ground, it grows in between the rocks. It's a bit difficult to plant any sizable bushes. I don't think we want to plant something that would grow fast with the press of cypress or landy. So I think somebody's going to come and look at it.
Yes, we're going to.
Right, so that, you know, we're going to look at it at the time and decide how obtrusive we think it is from a scenic perspective.
Anyone else? Jim?
Draft CD resolution for the board consideration for the application by William Meek site plan approval under Town Code Chapter 125 for installation of a shed with a generator and fuel tank along the scenic road 399 Mill Road in the R10 zoning district, accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the action as type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Scheduling the application, public hearing for the application for September 15th, no earlier than 6:05 p.m. This will go to the CAB, the WAC for review. Then we'll go to Dutchess County Planning because it is a site plan, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So,
Motion, second? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Schedule the site visit. The third new application for this evening is that of Malacopa, Obshiansky, 8-10 Schatzel, site plan and special use permit for an HVAC installation. Warren?
Good evening, Warren Smith, architect, representing Maricopa. This property is on property 8-10 Schatzel. This particular building is 8. To the left of it, not visible photograph. It's a standalone building. It's a fairly old building, I guess late 19th century. And the owner would like to put a couple of heat pump condenser units that are seen on the left of the view on the left there. So they'll sit on the ground, the sort of back corner of the building, the southeast corner of the building. At the pre-app, we discussed having the line sets and any lines around the building be camouflaged by the building as far as possible. You see it to the end of the driveway, and pretty much the only place we can put these, the west property line basically where the building sits. Of course, we can walk in the front, around the back, there is a door into the back of the ground floor. So this seems to be, both because of the changing grade of the retaining wall on the end of the driveway, probably the least visible place we can put them on the photo side of the building. That's the substance of this application.
Yeah, so I think this is primarily, we are in the Hamlet, primarily a discussion of, historic preservation. These are heat pumps, we've looked at these before, and more proposed to paint them to blend into the building. There are already, there's a ladder there, there's already the electrical, vertical, running up the side of the building. We talked about the possibility of moving the lines closer to those, but there's also a lot of issues with that because of the window well and some other things that are kind of in the way of the line sets and the windows themselves right near the ground. So really, I don't have any other comments other than consistency with historic character. There's really no ground disturbance, there's no ground disturbance or anything really discussed there.
Planning board members?
Is there any way of putting them on the roof?
Units on the roof? I'd have to check.
Because there are units on the roof of the building that's cross corner from that.
Yes.
You already presented last year.
That's correct. I think it's on the lower roof, actually.
It is, yeah.
On the lower roof, yeah.
And I think is there a stated preference in the handbook that you folks produced?
I don't believe there is. The roof may be flat or close to flat, or may have a slight taper, but I can certainly investigate the possibility.
And the line sets are going to follow the lines of the building.
Yes. Yes.
How many spaces are there that are getting served by these two condensers?
I believe there, in addition to the ground floor retail or office space, I believe there are two apartments on each of the other floors.
And it's about for both heating and air conditioning, or just?
I think they're like supplemental heating, but they're primarily air conditioning.
But they do function as heat pumps, so they can't really
Yes,
be
they
right.
could. I mean, it was replace a window unit, air conditioner you see up there.
Yeah, it can't really be right on the ground, it'll get covered with snow in the winter time.
That's correct. They have to be on a very small support structure. But that could be a problem for roof too.
Okay, I think it's an interesting idea, because I'm looking at that, if I was a plow that driveway, where would I push the snow? I push it right into those units.
Yeah, they push it to the end, that's right.
So just something to think of, since we're looking at this location. I'd hate for them to be on the building, because I think they'd be more visible, but I'm just, that's my only concern is location. In addition to this.
And I agree, it is a kind of it's a side elevation, it is tucked in the back, it's somewhat the street. But,
And we can certainly investigate that.
yeah, whatever the ideal location is.
And why does it say Holly on the side of the building?
That I can't answer. It's been there for quite a while. I'm not even sure Richard knows what's doing.
There was a tenant in there, and that was the name of the business many years ago.
It was a pet store?
It was a tenant's company,
Oh, okay. So at least that.
like 14, 13 years ago or something.
Others? Okay. Jim?
Procedure resolution for the board consideration for the application by Maya Copa LLC, Richard Kuczynski, for site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125, for installation of 2 heat pumps at 8 to 10 Chastel Avenue within the RCH and RCO overlay. Excuse me, accepting the application, supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the action as type 2 under SEQA, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Schedule the public hearing for the application for September 15th, no later than 6:05 p.m. We will send this to the CAB, the WAC, HAPAC, and Dutchess County Planning for referral, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Who'd like to go in?
Okay. Double.
May I have a motion, please? And a motion second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Be in touch. The fourth and last new application this evening is that of Wincliff Court, LLC 7 Wincliff Court. Site plan review for an addition of a carport with a deck.
Good evening. My name is Diego Zelaya. I'm here with Architecture Plus Construction for the 7 Wincliff Court property. The property is in it's a corner lot between Wincliff and Mill Road, and it's an existing non-conforming lot. It's about 2.5 acres. I think the minimum requirement there is 3 acres, and basically what we're seeking is approval to install a 27.5-foot by 20-foot carport with a second floor deck on the eastern side of the lot. But after you establish the setbacks, the lot essentially becomes non-buildable because the front setback is 200 feet, the rear setback is 100 feet, and side setbacks, I believe, are 75 feet. So if you do the offsets there, basically we don't have a building area for the lot. Yes, that's what
Not a lot for this one. Oh, well, actually, we didn't do.
I'll mention one more thing. Sorry, we did apply for the zoning board of appeals, and we are in that process. I know we are on the agenda for Wednesday, but we also wanted to run the 2 processes parallel to push up speed up the process here. And one thing to know, I'm sorry, that drawings are mislabeled. The top right drawing, east elevation, that should be west. and then the bottom drawing that says west elevation, that's the east. So the carport is this area here. There's two garage doors here that would be framed in and closed with siding, and that's existing. Stairs on the outside, backs to the second floor deck.
Rectangular button, second on that one. There you go.
So that's the stairs going up the deck. The two cars would be here. Engineering would take place to establish the spans of these joists up here, but that's irrelevant to this. And then we just basically an exterior improvement of removing the siding there, putting new wood siding, wood slats on the outside facing wind cliff. So, it's very minimal impact to the visuals of the neighbors driving by. Improvements to the exterior, standing seam metal roof, and that's pretty much it. The carport would exist where the driveway is, so there's gravel there now, so that we wouldn't be interrupting the vegetation that exists there now. This is the existing east side of the house. There's an image from the entrance of the driveway, so the carport would take place here where the garage doors are.
This is not historic property, but it is in the area of the original Winthrop estate. Therefore, the board may have a desire to send this to APAC for review just due to the historic nature of the area, even though this property, or this house itself is not. Interestingly, when I took a look at the historic sheet for this, the original tennis court for the Winthrop estate is on this property, the remnants of it. And it's rumored that a pipe that once carried alcoholic refreshments to the tennis court is also buried on the site somewhere. So there you go. Mostly we're looking at this as a view shed issue from Mill Road for the planning board review. It is a corner lot, and I can pull up an aerial if you want. You can see the the view into the parcel, from Mill Road.
Yeah.
Again, I want to note, we do require topography to be shown on the site plans. We can potentially ask for a waiver. The difference with this one is that this carport is being proposed to be built over the existing driveway. We're not looking at I don't think we'll get any grading, it's just gonna be some footers going in, both I think for the,
There's some topography lines shown on the site plan.
is it on there?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
very,
there.
it's very, really flat, so the
Right.
topography varies, but there it is, and then I added some lines from what was in there, but that's really the change in there.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that what we're doing is essentially putting posts in the ground, on an existing, essentially disturbed driveway. It's pretty flat, and the stairs are just gonna essentially land kind of in the same area. So it's a review of view sheds, and I think, historic review by HAPAC, just given the nature of the area.
Any board members? All right. Jim, you have a draft proceeding resolution?
Draft resolution for the board's consideration for the application by Winthrop Court LLC for site plan approval under Town Code Chapter 125 for construction of the deck and changes to the exterior facade along Scenic Road at 7 Winthrop Court within the HP 20 zoning district. Accepting applications, scoring documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the action as type 2 under secret, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Scheduling the public hearing for September 15th, no earlier than 6:05 p.m. We will send it to the CAB, the WAC, and I will add APAC if the board would like that to happen.
Sure.
So it's take back for review, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Thank you.
That concludes the new application portion of this evening's meeting, and we'll move into the public hearings, of which we have 3. The first this evening is that of Joel Herm, 443 Mill Road, site plan review for the abandonment of micro hydro that was previously approved. Good evening.
Hi, Joel Hearn, 443 Mill Road. After the work was finally completely done, we installed about $1,000 worth of further planting plan from Santa Garden. And we've installed with their structure.
Jim, anything these are the images we received today.
Yep, this came in today to Brian. So we do have a letter from Rhinebeck Engineering stating that everything has been done. CPL had reviewed the previous letter stating that most everything has been done except for the final work of the plantings and the soil, and that the work done at that point had been adequate. I think, with this letter and the picture, assuming Joey didn't Photoshop it, showing the plantings are in, I think
Oh,
we're good
it's
to
all
go.
Photoshop,
Of course it
it
is.
doesn't exist.
After all this work. I did talk to Brian today, and I do believe the stop work order will be lifted now, given the information that we given today, so that condition is taken care of. With the board's approval of this, assuming that you're okay with it, and CPL sign off, I think, we're at the point now where you can consider approval, and the only remaining conditions would be anything the planning board wanted to put on the project, but I think all of the conditions have been required.
Okay. Questions, comments from the planning board? Are you?
Joel, you're really good at Photoshop.
Sorry.
You're really good at Photoshop.
I only mention that because
No,
we haven't
I'm
had someone from the building department go out to actually confirm, but I think we're good.
I thank you again for doing this, and I don't see any further.
Be happy to invite you over for a picnic, for a
Yeah.
project closeout picnic.
Perfect.
Okay,
All right,
serious?
Jim, what's the next step?
Come on over.
We need to do a seeker approval resolution because this was a unlisted action, and then an approval resolution. We've gone through this before, everybody knows how these work, so we will go through it one more time. This is very slowly. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or? Will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulations?
No.
Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the CEA? The answer is no, we don't have any in Rhinebeck. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walking? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
Will the action impact existing public, private, water, or wastewater supplies?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in adverse changes to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? And will the action create a hazard to the environmental resources or human health? So with that, we've completed the secret form, and now we can here to state that this proposed action is seeking approval to abandon the previously approved microhydro project by rescinding the previous site plan, which is a special use permit, with a special use permit, wetland permit approvals through this site plan amendment that will return the disturbed area near the existing dam to the original or near the original condition, which has been completed. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, in its role as duly established lead agency under seeker, and upon review of completion of the Surety AF associated information, hereby issues a negative declaration under seeker, deeming an environmental impact statement is not required and stating such will not be prepared in its consideration of the site plan amendment for the property of 443 Mill Road within the R810 zoning district. In taking this action, the planning board approves the work, to move, well, let's say we'll approve the work since it's done now. And the actions are hereby approved for implementation, but they're already done. We need an action on that, so site modifications last sentence.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
The
Second.
motion in a second, we'll hold the board. Greg?
Aye.
Edwin? Tom? Tom?
Aye.
Sharon? Elise? Aye. And I will.
All right, now we'll do the approval resolution. Resolution for the board's consideration for the application by Joel Herm for site plan review under Town Code Chapter 125 to abandon the previously approved microhydro project by rescinding this previous site plan, special use permit, wetlands permit approvals through this site plan amendment, returning the disturbed area near the existing dam to the original or near original condition as detailed in the submitted and approved materials that we received. Now, There is a change to the resolution that I had submitted to you in my memo. We did add one additional item to this, and I'll bring it up on the screen because this is actually group one. So we're reaffirming the action as type 2 for which coordinated, oh no, I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. I go back to the bus. I'm jumping ahead. We go back to this one. We are reaffirming the action as unlisted for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Based upon the submitted information, finding the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. With respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work to return the disturbed area to near or as near original condition as possible is consistent with Town Code Chapter 125. It approves the application inclusive of the site restoration plan by Rhinebeck Engineering, PC, dated January 24th, 2025, revised May 22nd, 2025, and the letter of completion, which I'm going to have to edit because it's changed today, will say from Rhinebeck Engineering, and I will put that to the date of that Rhinebeck Engineering letter up on the screen that we received today. We will eliminate item B, which was, B stays, requires the applicant to pay fees and costs related to any professional consultant assistance that the town of Rhinebeck required to inspect, administer, complete, and implement the approved action. We are requiring that a fish ladder be installed. The proposal has been submitted as part of the application and is hereby accepted for implementation. We are authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above-cited site plan, subject to the conditions below. We will take out, this is where we're taking out, so we will take out item number 1, because all the vegetation has been installed. And so it's subject to the 3 conditions listed there, which are 2, 3, and 4, which are the typical conditions that we have, which are the form and number of the plans being submitted, payment of outstanding fees, receipt of approvals, authorizations, certifications required. And we note that in taking this action, the board further authorizes the planning board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant along with details on next steps. So, but since everything has been done, I think we're essentially there. The next steps are completed. So with that, I turn it over to the board. Resolution with a couple edits.
Okay, Gretchen has reminded me that I thought we closed the public hearing.
So I just looked back and they were all continued.
Okay, so before we go to the approval resolution, I will ask the public if there's anyone here still wishing to comment on this application. If there is none, then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Just a minor question. Did we get anything as far as like the vegetation being upkept, or are we just expecting that to just?
That is a general requirement of all site plans,
Yeah.
so it's in the law. No
And it's-
vegetation has to be maintained. I thought about that, but it is in the law itself.
Fair enough. But,
No, motion.
motion.
Second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Now, Jim has already run through the approval resolution, so I'll ask for a motion and a second on that.
Motion.
Motion? Second. All right, I'll pull the board again. Denise? Aye. Sharon? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Edna? Aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for yours. The next public hearing for this evening is that of Wildflower School, Bern, 7085 and 7091 Route 9, site plan and special use permit, daycare and nursery school. Good evening.
Hey everyone, my name is Marty Mills. I'm representing Anusha and Paul Byrne. The Wildflower School. So we've been back a couple times, and I just wanted to give you an update on what's changed on the drawing since last time that you saw it. We've gone back into the New York State DOT. We did have a couple of revisions. They still need estimates. Actually, wait, but they're very minor this time. I'll discuss them, but I can show you on the drawings too. Mostly, oh yeah. Just wait for. Oh, that's okay. So you can actually stop on this paper sheet. Perfect. Thank you. And if you want to just zoom into this section up there. Oh, you can stop. All right. So. Thank you. So one of the things they wanted us to change was the topping course. The topping course right there, we changed that from 9.5 millimeter material to 12.5 millimeters. So half inch. And then another thing that they wanted us to change was
No,
No.
he does the scroll,
Oh.
but it's just a pointer.
Gotcha. Same sheet, right here actually, we had initially had the do not enter the one-way sign on the southern exit on a common post. And they wanted us to change that, put that on independent posts. So we put those on independent posts. Compaction requirements for the asphalt. I kind of talked about it a little bit last time. They wanted us to use a nuclear density gauge to compact the asphalt, which no one, not local contractors, don't do or don't have. So we got them to change it to what's called an 80 series compaction, which is just the number of rolls in a roll. And it's New York State DOT. But so we changed that. They also had wanted us to do 12 inches of asphalt, which did not follow the standard. So we finally got them to go back to what the standard required, which is 8-inch sub-base with 6 inches of asphalt on top, which we feel is adequate, especially since we're going to have passenger cars accessing the site. And there was, so there were a couple typo changes going from 70 series to 80 series compaction. Those things changed. And basically, they're right up in here. I'm going to just do it wrong again, I think. So. But basically, just talking about the asphalt, talking about the type of compaction that we're going to do. And 70 series to 80 series. And then there were, if you want to scroll up one more sheet. And that table in the lower left. And this is just my inattention to detail. There were several places where instead of saying stopping site distance, I said site stopping distance, things like that, basically, just typos, mistakes on my part. We changed those. Nothing else, none of the actual site distance numbers have changed, nothing like that, but just the stopping site distances. And that is it. Those are the changes on the drawing since the last year.
So I did confirm with DOT, their review is complete. Their review application is complete. They're prepared to provide the highway permits that we're receiving an approval resolution from the planning board. The only question I had is I just didn't remember this green hatched area here where you're proposing some clearing. I just wanted to make sure, the clearing for the sight lines, I understand that, but you're not proposing to take down any big trees or anything here?
No big trees. That's just an area that should be maintained as we go forward in time, just to aid southern bound traffic.
Just want to make sure there weren't any large trees you're talking about taking down.
Yeah. Yep, there is one large tree at the north end of the property, but we checked with them and we're allowed to keep that. We wanted to keep that.
So that's it. That was just my last question. Otherwise, I think all my questions have been answered. DOT is ready.
Any board members? Pretty satisfied that you have everything you need?
Yeah, I think that, the central concern was just to avoid the stacking, and I think that's been attended to in the past. I'm pleased to see that you moved ahead with the DOT, their strict requirements. Satisfied.
Anyone else? Would anyone?
I mean, that we move on to the approval resolution.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Jim?
I do. This is the one that has the slight modification from what I sent you before, so I'll read it off the screen. So the draft approval resolution for the board's consideration tonight for the application by Wildflower School Burn for site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 for the daycare nursery school and associated outside conforming housing and the existing residences 7085 and 7091 9 in the RC5 zoning district. Reaffirming the action is type 2, for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required. Number 2 is the new addition. With regard to the easement for ingress and egress between the subject property and the adjoining property, noting that the easement is a restrictive covenant between the two property owners and outside the planning board's jurisdiction. It's a private matter between the two property owners, and the planning board has no authority to enforce it. That said, there's no work proposed on the adjoining property. Based on the review of submitted information, finding the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. Asking the planning board to find the proposed work and intended use is consistent with the general standards for special use permits set forth in Town Code Chapter 125 and granting the requested special use permit, conditioned upon site plan approval. With respect to site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125 and approving the application. Inclusive materials by Christina Ducharme Architecture PLLC dated April 4th, 2025, and Mark J. Wilms, AC, with PDF file date of July 16th, 2025. Authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan, subject to the 3 conditions listed there. And noting that in taking this action, the planning board further authorizes the board secretary to provide the approval resolution to the applicant, details on next steps required to finalize the planning board process. That all plans, sketches, and other materials submitted to the Town of Rhinebeck Building Department for any required permits, including a CO or certificate of completion, must match the materials approved by the planning board. Any submissions to the building department that include changes to the planning board approved plans or materials are subject to rejection and/or requirement for resubmission for reapproval as determined by and at the discretion of the town zoning enforcement officer.
May I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Pull forward. Craig?
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Sharon? Aye. Elise?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
The last public hearing for this evening is that of workforce housing, Rhine Cliff Road, site plan and wetland permit, affordable housing units. Good evening, Andy. How are
Good
you?
evening, how are you?
And I believe Christian has joined us. Marcy, I'm sorry.
If you don't mind, just put it on sheet 200 for a minute. Just want to go over some of the changes that we've made since last time. So, probably, this is.
Right, thank you, one second one there.
Sorry, everything is in your Fine. Your file is a very large file. I have to resize it and it jams me up a little bit once in a while.
So I'll just, while you're finding it, probably the biggest change that we've made is that we adjusted the trail connection to provide a more direct connection to the village sidewalk system through the adjoining property that the Carneys own. So what we've done, what we're proposing is a stone, replacing the stone dust trail with a wood chip path through the wooded portion of this property. We wouldn't propose any tree clearing, minor brush clearing, just basically a path through the woods that gets residents to the sidewalk system until some future date when that property is developed, when a formal sidewalk system could be installed to provide a more permanent connection. This would just be temporary. The village property would grant a temporary easement to the town property over that trail for access to get people in and out to the village. Some of the other changes that we made, Christian has suggested an evaluation of Astor Drive for prior to the start of construction, to evaluate the condition of the road, so that if there's any damage to the road as a result of construction equipment, we'll be able to note that, and the developer would enter into an agreement to make any necessary repairs. We've also added retaining wall height, top and bottom wall elevations here, here, to indicate maximum height of the walls. This one is roughly 9 feet. These two are 6 to 7 feet behind building Sorry, I'm not going to quote before the. We also have, we updated the fencing plan. It's just post and rail fence for fall protection on the walls and then also around each of the proposed stormwater management practices. Speaking of stormwater management practices, we have received a request. We had previously had a stormwater practice here. Jim had noted that there were a couple of large trees that we would like to try to save, so we were able to accommodate that by switching it, moving it to this side of the access road. A couple of places where our tree lines still need to be updated, but it will work where that's shown there now. Let's see. Probably the next most significant change is that we did provide a full landscape plan that we tried to incorporate as many of Edna's comments as we could. We did bunch landscaping along the proposed tree line and proposed meadow plantings between the tree line and the edge of the sidewalk or curb line. We also have a landscape strip along in front of the buildings between the curb and the sidewalk where we're able to put some street trees. Let's see. Jim had requested, we had our pump station is located right here, and originally we had our generator right there next to it. We've shifted that back by the dumpster to kind of get it out of the way, out of view. So I think that eliminates the need for any kind of screening there. There should just be a couple of pipes sticking up out of the ground at that point. The EV charger, we did confirm that is a type 2. And then another thing we changed, it's kind of hard to see with the hatching here, but one of the other comments was that the playground had originally been over here, and that was going to require some tree clearing. So we've shifted that down over here closer to the road, so that'll save some of the trees that are in this open green space area. Again, to try to minimize tree clearing here where possible. And finally, I didn't include it, but I do have an example of the sign. I'm not sure if you want me to share it with you or just include it with the next submission. If you're interested in taking a look at that. It's an example of a sign that they used on the previous project. So I think that pretty much sums up the major changes that we've made. We did just receive Christian's comments yesterday, maybe, or Friday, and we're going to continue to work through those. I think we're getting pretty close on most of your comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then as far as outside agency approvals, we continue to work with the DOT, the health department, and parent department.
I had a bunch of updates in my memo. I'm not going to go through all of them. A lot of it's just saying that Andy had addressed a lot of comments I had made previously. One he didn't touch on any, it was just that the bus shelter is now shown on the edge of the open space area. We questioned where that was, and I couldn't find it. So it is in the open space, kind of centrally located within the development. Most everything else, again, it's all been taken care of. There's some minor things, and Andy will get a copy of my notes just to look at signature boxes and whatever else. The only big thing that I have identified now that we're further along is the signage plan. Based on what I've taken a look at, even though it's still preliminary, we don't have the details on that. The signage plan, because we are in a residential district, as everyone knows, signage is very difficult in town, particularly in residential areas. There is no way the signage plan is going to meet the zoning code. And I don't think that the rezoning the town did addressed signage, unfortunately. So we have precedent for this. When Ruby's came in, they went through a very lengthy process looking at the signage package. It includes everything from directional signage to stop signs and everything else. So unfortunately, we're going to have to deal with this issue with signage. Like I said, there is precedent with the ZBA, but I think the way that the law is written, probably go back to the town board and ask them to take a look at this and address the revised law, see what they want to do. Because right now, I think in residential district, you're allowed like 12 square feet of signage, which is just not going to happen. So that's something we'll have to address. Otherwise, I think everything's kind of been addressed in my notes here.
Christian, any comments you want
So Andy pretty much covered most of our comments. They submitted a bunch more details, detailed profiles for the engineering details. From an engineering standpoint, a lot of the items have been addressed. Most of our comments, the majority of them are just nuts and bolts. And relative to the SWIP, we're still in the process of reviewing the SWIP. We just needed a little bit more time. We're going to issue a revised memo the next day or so to the planning board, just with those items. They are nuts and bolts, just so that we can get them to you guys as soon as we can. We don't anticipate them impacting the design or the site at all. Just so we can get them those comments and try to keep things moving. But yeah, from an engineering perspective, they've really worked through a lot of the issues. Andy mentioned that they acknowledged the comment about the developer's agreement and evaluating the town road. They've added that to the plan. We should make sure that things like that make its way into the resolution of approval eventually. We can work towards that with the planning board's attorney to make sure that resolution, and with Jim to make sure that resolution is drafted with all these particular items. At some point, we should probably sit down with the highway super and talk about what that agreement will look like, and which roads we should include in that. But again, those are items that won't really impact the site plan. They're really just brought up here for the board's information, if you have any input to that, and if that impacts your review and your how you view this project, then that's why we bring this stuff up now. But again, as far as impacting a site plan, I don't see any issues with that regard. Andy acknowledged that they're still working through health department approvals. He did submit a comment letter today. He just put the wrong memo in the package, which happens when you have plan sets that are 55 pages. So it's a lot of documentation, but there was only a few comments from the health department, which was interesting. So and just a side comment to that, does the village water and sewer department, are they going to be doing a technical review of your guys' plans?
They have been.
Okay. Are you guys able to provide any correspondences relative to that? That was really it. The majority of our comments have been addressed, so if the board had any questions on our letter, we're happy to elaborate more.
With that, I'll open it up to planning board members, questions, comments, and Andy or Christian.
I'm sorry if I missed it. Is there a final plan or for the access on what's in the north side of the property? Is that
Master Drive.
Yeah, what's it like? Do we know what it's going to be used for? Is that only for moving the vehicles?
So the way that the DOT is kind of dictating this, normally the DOT doesn't like new access points on their roads if there's a secondary access to a local road. So the compromise that we reached with them was to allow full access on this driveway at the south end. We had to maintain this access as exit only going north. So it's not emergency access, it's exit only,
Got it.
one way north.
And then, do we have floor plans or building? Is it like decks or anything like that? Yeah, I missed it.
We'll have to know.
All time. Is it going to be like a grilling area? Grill. Like outdoor grilling area or anything like that?
There's outdoor areas, there's playground, there's other areas, but not really.
We don't have any grill areas on the site plan right now.
Is there like a plan of like what's allowed on the decks?
Really?
I'm just thinking like, if you have like a bunch of, someone like puts a charcoal grill on the deck, and I'm just thinking,
I'm pretty sure that's a building code violation.
it doesn't stop you.
Yeah, right.
Not as smart as you think.
And everybody believes
So,
that there's restrictions on what they can have on their deck. There's no grilling. In addition, seek to avoid, you know, using it to dry clothes and so forth, because it's unsightly to
Of course,
everybody else.
yeah, this was just something that came up, I'm just thinking like summers, people like to, you know, get together and they like to grill. Now you're gonna have a bunch of George Foremans in every house, it just might be something
Well,
to
maybe,
contemplate.
as you're, you know, you've got some more things to get to, maybe you just want to show for the board a sample lease arrangement at another property, it's the kinds of things that you
Sure,
require of people.
sure. Thank you.
Who else?
I would like to look at the landscape plan. If you could bring that up.
Just want to know, while I'm bringing that up, and regarding the signage, you know, we had discussed before, initially, we were discussing signage overall, that you can submit that separately, it doesn't have to come through this process, so that is an option. It's an option at any time. It would be reviewed separately.
We've done that with other applications, but have this kind of complicated signage package.
Pretty much the last few
Of course.
This is the north end.
Yeah, is it possible to look at the whole thing, or is it too tiny?
The one that you were just on is the whole thing, pretty small.
It's pretty small, isn't it? It's hard to see anything.
Again, for some reason, my files jump every time I zoom around. The easiest way to look at it is this.
Okay,
This is the north end.
So one question that I have is, I thought that there was going to be a sidewalk to Wells Manor Lane.
So yes, we had discussed that, but we are also, if you go down, keep going to show the green space. We have a sidewalk right here, proposed right up to the boundary with Falls Manor that could be continued in the future if they so desire, that would provide protection. That's a twofold purpose. That would grant them access to use this open space area and could potentially allow our residents to walk down through their property to get to
Okay, my thought is that many people will be taking that route along the road to the hospital. Perhaps even more people then will be walking down to Rhinecliff Road. You know, every day, because I think lots of people are going to be working there. So that is one comment. You were able to install tree lawns along the building frontage. I noticed that the trees that are shown for that area are smaller. Is that because the tree lawns have a restricted width and they won't take a large shade tree?
Well, I'm not a landscape architect, but I believe that's correct.
Uh-huh. And moving down toward Rhinecliff Road, I didn't really understand the objection to using a tree lawn between the sidewalk and the road. So here, what's shown is the sidewalk is right along the road.
Right. So basically what would happen is if we provide a tree lawn here, that pushes everything out and results in additional soil disturbance that we're trying to minimize.
Well, why wouldn't it simply take the place of some of the lawn area? Why
Well,
would it?
because for one thing, there's a little bit of coordination that needs to happen here with the tree line.
Uh-huh.
That will be updated in the next submission. But basically, the idea here is that we're trying to keep this tree line as close as possible to the edge of grading to minimize the existing trees that have to be removed. So even in this case, I am going to encourage our landscape architect to push those trees up as close to the road as possible. Well, actually, I mean, based on your comments, we were trying to keep them along the tree line, but we would try to, again, try to minimize the tree there.
Okay. Is there an irrigation, is there a projected need for irrigation over the first 2 years after planting?
So the way that it would work, I think you mentioned it in a previous site plan application tonight, there is a need to irrigate trees to keep them alive, but it would be upon it would be the developer's responsibility to make sure they survive. And if they don't, they would have to be replaced. So we're not proposing an irrigation system for the site.
I understand that, although it seems short-sighted, since there's going to be an awful lot of trenching going on, you know, an awful lot of moving around the earth, and it would seem that from a labor point of view, it would not really add that much cost. And also, many of the plantings are along lines, you know, so they would favor, you know, simple lines in the water lines in the ground. Anyway, something perhaps for further thought. But I'm wondering, you know, in the case of a drought, for example, is there some sort of projection for how much irrigation would be required? I tried to do a count, and I came up with over 1,100 trees and shrubs that you're planning to plant. 165 are 2 or 2.5 inch caliber, and the balance are shrubs. I didn't count the daylilies. You know, being very conservative during a drought, you need 10 gallons a week for trees, and conservatively you need like 3 gallons for shrubs. I came up with an estimate of 4,600 gallons required per week during a drought. So is this something that has been discussed with Village Water, you know, in case there is a need for irrigation?
I think, again, the idea is that once these are established, that they wouldn't need to be irrigated. And that, you know, if it just so happens that when we plant this during, if it happens that we have planting during the drought, you know, I think we would cross that bridge when it happens. But 4,600 gallons is really not a lot of water in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that's per week. But typically, establishment is over a 2-year period. And certainly you water during the first year. Anyway, 10 gallons of water weighs 83 pounds. So I hope the service people are going to be healthy and strong. A last comment. Looking at the overall site plan, maybe we don't have to look at it again. I was trying to look at where people are going to store bicycles, and I understand there are rings to be set in the concrete in various places so that bicycles could be locked up. But then I wondered what's going to happen in the wintertime when those rings are all covered up with ice and snow.
Right, so I believe, and Ken, if you correct me if I'm wrong, there's one of the funding agency requirements is interior bike storage. I believe if you look at the code back, you'll see that.
Is that in building 4? Because this is building 4, and if you look at the first floor plan, I was looking at the super storage. And there's a door, an exterior door. And by the way, I couldn't find it on the elevations. I could not find that door.
It doesn't, the plans that I'm looking at right now, they may not be labeled, but it is a requirement that we provide that.
So you'll label that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess you might want to check the elevation for building 4 and make sure that that door, that exterior door is on the elevation.
Sure.
I remembered at an earlier hearing, there was a request to provide some of the surrounding context. And I didn't see that on these plans as far as the location of Wells Manor, how that's laid out. And I mean, I'm pleased that you provided a sidewalk up to that property line, but there's still no durable easement that grants permission to cross that property.
To Wells, you're referring to the what sidewalk to Wells Manor?
The sidewalk
Right.
to Wells Manor.
Okay.
So it, it's going to be a dead end, or people are going to trespass. And there is a Village of Rhinebeck property just on the other side of Wells Manor property. And that communicates with Bird Court, which is a very quiet roadway that leads out to the sidewalks. It had been a gravel path, but now it's a wood chip path. Again, pleased to see that that makes more of a direct connection, but my memory of the site is that there's an enormous, maybe 30-foot tall rock ledge that's kind of wedged next to the Baker House and that property to the east. And that would make for some rough and tumble transit just to get to the village.
Yeah, it will not be an ADA accessible route. We will find the most reasonable route we can with the wood chip path, with knowing that it's temporary, that at some point in the future that property will be developed.
Well, it's almost like it would require a staircase. I mean, it's that kind of elevation. And the goal here was to provide a usable walking connection. And I'm still not seeing it. Also, were there easements that were required for the transit of the force main to the sewage plant?
No, it's going to be passing through our property through the easement that we have over the Wells Manor Lane and then into the right-of-way for passenger drives.
Okay, it's just this afternoon, I was trying to catch up on the documents. I thought I saw something, maybe it was from the Dutchess County Department of Health, Behavioral Sciences, that said that you needed to get easements that listed the
Yeah,
tax lot.
we're proposing a modification to the route of the force main, so we don't need those easements.
Okay, so it's gonna stay entirely on,
Village, in the village right away. Yeah.
okay. So it seems like it's not likely that you're gonna get easements from Wells Manor for anything.
We don't want to rely on that, let's put it that way.
It's unfortunate because you're kind of barricaded by a number of things, property ownership and geography, geology, and it makes this site, which is, it's adjacent to the village. It keeps it from being accessible to the village. And I'm not talking about ADA accessibility. I'm talking about just practically people, wanting to walk through here. People wanting to walk from here to the town park instead of getting in their car. I think it would just be so wasteful if somebody who works at a hospital gets in their car and drives to Northern Dutchess from here because there's not a practical walking connection. I think that would be a real shame, and it really defeats the purpose of the concept of this property.
Well, my understanding is that, like I said, there's a plan, there's no plan yet, but that village property will be developed eventually that will provide that connection. I also understand that the town is working on a sidewalk project, or has been working on a sidewalk project along the Cliff Road that our sidewalk on Cliff would potentially tie into. So there is movement in that direction.
Is that the Alta Engineering that was done in
Not sure.
2020?
No, there was an email recently, Friday, where someone from the town was working, even though the town was working on that.
Yes, it is.
It's all tied together, it's very easy.
Dana Colleen Peterson, one of the town board members, has taken up the task of continuing to investigate the feasibility of developing that path from Rhinebeck to Rhinebeck Village. she's been reaching out to DOT and other agencies. I can't comment on where she is in the plan, but I know she's presented bits and pieces of it before the town board.
And I did share our plans with her on Friday, that's how I.
And a question about the playground. Is that, there's no need to curb cut that, correct?
Right, there's some grading that's required along the green space area, that's why there's a little bit of tree clearance shown there, but like I said, we moved the playground so that we could try to minimize the amount of trees that have to be cut from the space.
So that's not meant to be an open field for ball games or something like that?
Well, I think the idea, it's not really called out here, but the idea is that there's some existing trees, we could clear out the brush, you could be kind of like a green space that people could kind of go and use and enjoy. Not necessarily.
Right, with some shade.
Yeah.
And is there some reason that there could not be barbecue facilities?
There's picnic tables shown here. Oh, barbecues, sorry.
So that is a
So we
plan?
do have barbecues.
Yes, we do.
All
Sorry.
right.
Too many sheets to remember.
All right, I'd like to move to comments from the public at this point. If members of the planning board satisfied at this time that that's where we can go?
I have one additional question about the retaining walls. I think the description was that they would be what's called mafia blocks. It's like 2 by 4 foot or 2 by 6 foot.
Yeah, modular block.
Modular blocks that have or they key in and they get built with crane, but they get built like a brick wall.
More or less,
Basically, on a
yes.
big.
Yep.
big work.
Yep.
What's the base character of that going to be? Is it a textured concrete or is it just the?
I don't think we've selected anything yet. Typically, what we would select has some texture to it.
Okay. And so in some of these locations where you have a 9-foot wall, you're going to be looking at what appears to be a stone wall,
Right.
even though it's made out of concrete.
Right.
And then there's going to be a 4-foot fence of some sort.
At the top.
And is that going to be a picket fence or
It's
a
a-
chain link? Or
It's called out to be a post rail fence.
This time I'd like to open it for public comment. Been through this before, you know the rules, we're going to ask you to come up one at a time, make your comments if they've been made. Let the next person go on, so who would like to go first? Come on to the microphone, introduce yourself, where you live, and your comments, please.
Hi, I'm Deirdre Burns. I live at 32 Chestnut Street in the Village. I've been a resident for 32 years. I appreciate the due diligence of the board in doing this site plan review. I've heard that the engineering consultant earlier saying that from an engineering standpoint, the site plan questions have been answered. I think the landscaping issue is tremendous. I think landscaping is so important, and I'm amazed at how much landscaping there will be. I think your issue, concern about the walkability is, as you pointed out, a question that's just sort of related to the topography and geographical location. But I fully support this project. The town board, of course, has approved it as a concept. And there's been environmental review. Having lived here for so long and raised my kids here, I was on the school board for many, many years. I realized how, the affordability question is huge. I was the chair of the housing subcommittee of the Village Comprehensive Plan, which is a committee that just completed, 2-year new comprehensive plan in the village. And affordability, everyone agreed on that. We need affordable housing. And so this is, again, I want to just really appreciate your due diligence in reviewing the site plan. It is very important. But I also hope that we can move it along because it's urgent. The housing crisis, the affordability crisis, we all see it. It's what everyone talks about, right? You run into each other. How expensive it is to live here. And so, and having had to go for surgery recently and physical therapy in the hospital, that conversation happens among staff, people who are working in the hospital, as you know. It happens in the schools. So I think this can be a project we can be so proud of in Rhinebeck. Like, I really feel strongly about that. We have a reputation of being, and we are, an affluent community, and people don't expect there to be affordable housing here. So I'm so enthusiastic about this, and I just hope you guys are too, and have a sense of urgency at this point, now that you've done, you know, such a thorough review of it, and that we can start to see it come to fruition. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you maybe just explain real quick that we're waiting on, like, there's a ton of permits in place that. Can you maybe communicate, or Melanie, to the public, the permits that would have to be in place before we can do anything? Like, I just want to make it really clear to the public that we're not roadblocking this. There's a ton of permits that need to be in place before this project can even move forward on our side. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Because it's like, as a planning board, our job is to follow the law that's in front of us. We can't do anything other than that. But we're waiting on permits really on a ton of different resources, is my understanding. So.
We'll let Jim and Christian we'll let the tag team on this.
So I'm not sure what the board's past practice is, but as far as permitting with outside agencies, as part of the secret process at the town board, we were required to demonstrate at least conceptual approvals for most or all of them. Again, not knowing what this board has done in the past, but in other municipalities, certain permitting, like health department approval, DOT approval, final approval, and Army Corps approval for wetlands, things like that can be appropriate if the planning board finds to be a condition of site plan approval. So they have generally demonstrated to a pretty high level of detail that they've met a lot of the outside agency requirements. There's still some information that's needed, just some clarification as to where they stand with village water and sewer technical reviews. Again, the big ticket items for the village water and sewer was an agreement being executed that they will provide water and sewer service, which they've demonstrated. So what's remaining is really a technical review of the pipe design and pump design, things like that. It's all the engineering details. Again, things like that could be left as conditions of approval if the board thought that was appropriate. What seems to be the more critical item for the board to be looking at are the site plan related items, and that's where we should be leaning on your planning consultant and the attorney relative to finalizing landscaping, make sure the planning board is really comfortable with the landscaping design, comfortable with the path, the path that they're proposing, the walkability. Those are all the site plan elements that you can't leave to a condition of approval. Those are what needs to be hammered out and defined clearly, because once we get to any sort of final approval, conditioned or not, that's trying to get to a point where that plan is locked in, and there's no real changes to the site plan. Engineering details, size of pipes, size of pumps, things like that, execution of agreements, those can be left as conditions of approval for the most part. So again, focusing on the items that you guys have all raised tonight, the fact, you talked about the retaining wall. One of our earlier comments was that the board has discretion, to ask about the material and what the aesthetic of those retaining walls are going to be. Same with the fencing. So those are all within the planning board's purview to look at. and to ask for more information. So that's really it's site plan related things. And the reason why I phrased my comments before, the engineering items really have been, you know, for the most part, addressed with some small caveats. Again, things that can be handled offline or as conditions of approval. But really, the planning board's directive really is to make sure that you guys are comfortable with the actual site plan related items.
Jim, anything else you want to add?
So I agree with that, and when we do these bigger projects, we just need to get to the point where the outside agencies have conceptual approvals or whatever, so that we're not looking at any significant changes that would change the ingress or the egress or the placement of a building or something like that would have to come back to the planning board later. So we always require those. They're always the finalization of the permits for outside agencies that is part of that process on these larger projects. But I think the other thing I'm getting to, Sean, is in terms of the review process, the planning board didn't have the zoning in place until June of this year for review. So we've been talking about it. We've seen this a number of times. You guys came back to us in December with the first review after a while of working with the town board. But we didn't have the law laid down with the specifics of what it was you were supposed to review against, the project we were reviewing against the Village Gateway standards, which we knew weren't going to be the final. Some of them got incorporated. So we've had a couple meetings since those were laid down, which is what really gave you the guidance for what to do. So it's only been since June, that we've been reviewing this with those new standards, which I think is what you're getting at. So it's only been a couple meetings, but Danny's credit, you guys have addressed, I think, a lot of what Christian and I have been asking for in the last 2 months. And we're getting pretty far along with those.
The only thing I would say, it kind of puts it together to what Jim was saying, many people have made comments here, and they've made comments in the press or to the press about this has been going on for a very, very, very long time. And I think we can all agree this has been going on for a very, very, very long time. However, the point I think Jim is trying to make is this board has only been looking at this since June. So please don't confuse all of the things that had to happen with the town board before and other boards before and the committee that was formed with the comprehensive plan to look at workforce housing, affordable housing. That was all important work and all took time. So I believe, I have been here a while, a few years, and I have sat through a lot of applications, and I believe we are moving this as effectively and as efficiently as we can within the law that's before us. I heard both Andy tonight, I heard both Christian say we've made great progress, we still have some outstanding things. I heard both of you say that. We've got to button up some things, there's some nuts and bolts. We have to button up the nuts and bolts. You would not be happy with a planning board that wasn't looking at the nuts and bolts. You don't want a planning board that isn't paying attention. So give us the grace to give us the time that we need to effectively look at what we need to look at and do our job. We're very happy to work. We've got a great team. We're very happy to have Christian here working with us. Jim is looking at it, John is looking at it, and we talk among ourselves between meetings to see how we can move this forward. So please, like I said, give us the grace to do our job diligently and with professionalism. So, anyone else from the public? Steve?
Hi, Steve Rosenberg, 25 Pratt Avenue in the Village. And I just want to respond a little bit to that. I think everybody who has spoken has gone out of their way to express their appreciation and understanding for the role that the planning board has, and that it's inevitable and great that the project will ultimately be better and stronger because of the planning board's review. And I don't think anybody ever intended to hold the planning board responsible for what happened before it got to the planning board, that it's been a long time. I think everybody's just expressing their enthusiasm for the project and their hope that on a going forward basis, this will move as quickly as it can. And so I hope the planning board isn't in any way defensive about what the public is saying. It's probably unusual for a large project of 80 units to have a group of people coming out and saying, this is a great thing, we want to see it happen. Typically in communities, when you have a bigger project, you have a large group of people saying, for lots of reasons, good and bad, We don't want to see this happen. So we're just hoping to get to the finish line, given the process and your experience, as soon as that can happen.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
I'm Eloise, I'm 4 Cherry Street with David Patch. To your point about...
Are you here representing the press? Or are you here as a private citizen?
Am I not allowed to ask?
I'm just asking.
Oh, yes, so I'm with Daily Cash. This is a question for my story. I just wanted to confirm the outstanding permits that are still need to be met. So it's the Health Department, DOT, SECRA, not SECRA.
Seeker's been completed at the town board level.
Okay.
So there's a record of all the permits in our comment letter and also in Jim's letter about all the outstanding items that need to be completed. So there's a number of different agencies involved. Health Department for several different approvals, New York State DOT, Army Corps of Engineers,
So Jim's comments letters, and your comments
Right.
letters are all available as public documents.
absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
And rather than try and give you the information you need from memory, we would refer you those documents so that you have it 100% ready.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Amy?
I just was wondering if there's no further public comments. Given where we stand with our comments and addressing the issues that were presented to us, we feel that we can address most of them with our next submission to the board. Would it be possible for you to request or have your consultant prepare a draft approval resolution for the next meeting?
Our consultant is usually working on that all along.
I am. However, on the bigger ones, and with Christian here doing the engineering, the three of us will work on it, and we have Grant Lyons involved in drafting this one. They do for the larger projects, the first type ones. So we can talk about it. I can talk with John. Where we stand, we can certainly start drafting it and start putting some things on paper.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I just want to emphasize the fact that there's engineering issues that have really been progressed. They've been working on these for a long time, as everybody's alluded to. That doesn't mean that the planning board issues should all be, along the same path. So again, you guys were just seeing this for the first time really in June, compared to compare it to the new zoning that was established by town board. So it really all depends on how comfortable the board is with the site plan related issues. So again, landscaping, lighting, the amenities, all of those things. So that the question of whether you're ready to consider approvals at some point in the near future, those are the questions. Are you satisfied with those items? That's what you should be looking at.
Well, I think in answer to Andy's question and suggestion, we are, I believe, approaching a point in our review where we would be asking our consultants to start looking at drafting something. Now, how long that takes and how many twists and turns it takes along the way, I'm not here to predict tonight, but I think the point is well taken. And we do like to get out ahead of that because these are important documents that need to be taken seriously and have due consideration. So the team that we have that will be looking at it, you've got Christian, Jim, and John and Kim, and we'll take their lead on that. John, is there anything you'd like to add? Any other questions for the speaker?
No, I would just say that, there's a lot that's going to have to be addressed in the site plan approval resolution, especially with regard to making sure that all the conditions are set forth. So, it's not going to be the kind of thing where if you have another submission a week before the meeting, there isn't going to be a site plan approval resolution ready for the meeting in that state. So, but we'll try to move it along as quickly as we can. And Jim has already been developing the bones of the resolution as we've been going along.
And let me also add that the resolution, when it comes to fruition, I know that many people in the town, certainly I hear this from the town board, I hear it from others, is this perhaps should not be the one and only affordable housing, workforce housing location in the town. And that there are many people that think this should be followed by others. So the work we do here, the resolution we develop, the precedents we lay down, the goals we set for ourselves as a community are important in this first one. And so we have that burden on us as well. We want this to go well. We want this to be successful because it will be a model for moving forward. And so that's what we're committed to. That's what our team's committed to. So with that, I think we are at the point where we can schedule, I could ask for a motion to continue the public hearing to, if someone would like to do that, going to September 15th. I have a motion, second.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Thank you. Can I just, Jim, can I get clear a little more about the signage, the options? You know,
The way the code is written,
Oh, I
you
don't want to do that. I'm not
you
good.
can't even really put in your entrance sign, what you're probably gonna want, it's like 8 square feet. 12
But the
square feet.
options as far as
Do a
timing,
separate sign
You
package.
can do
Oh,
it,
this
you
is
can do it
separate.
completely separate, so we talked about this originally.
Sign
because-
does not have to go run concurrently with site.
okay, so we can get site plan and then the sign application subsequent.
Just have to make sure all your notes on the plans say signs to be done under separate, approval or whatever,
Okay.
so that there's no implications around the sign.
And Jim referenced the Ruby's
Right.
approval of several years ago, and the fact that that was a very complicated sign package, because there was a lot of.
Did you like my sign, Jim? Very nice sign.
We're not going to comment.
Also, Rhinebeck equine.
Yep, Rhinebeck plan. Those are two examples that you could look at that required a great deal of signage to effectively move people around within the property. And they could be something you want to look at and just see.
It's the Ruby Stuber application in the ORP, I think it was done I think it was approved last year, sometime.
It might even be a little more recent than that.
It's within the last 6 to 12 months.
But I would also say that ZBA has been understanding that the way that the zoning law is written with regard to the restrictions on the amount of signage, that in order for a development like this to work properly, you need to have signage that's going to guide people through so that everything, the site plan, after all the effort that's put in, everything will flow properly. So the zoning board of appeals has been very understanding with regard to the applications that have been made for variances on signage for that purpose.
So just, and maybe Jim and I need to talk about it offline, but just for clarification, we do have some like traffic control signage. Is that has to come
Well,
off?
that's why, no, it doesn't have to come off, but it has to be part of the
Sign
overall sign
package.
package. The way that, what went through with Ruby's recently is that even the directional internal signage, some stop signs and other things, if they're not MUTCD mandated, they're internal, so it's not necessarily MUTCD. Anyway, it was determined by the zoning administrator and ZBA that all those signs count. So you have to give us a full sign package, and then we will go through it. But the square footage of signs permitted in a residential district is so restrictive that we can't really do much of anything. So, but you'll see for Ruby's, there was a lot of signage that was approved by the ZBA. They understood, the need. I mean, John can explain it better than I can, versus the ZBA director.
John, can I ask a question, please? The sign package, is it a condition of site plan approval, or is it a condition of CO approval? In other words, so hypothetically, if Murphy was an optimist, I'm an optimist. Say we get there.
I mean, I think it was stated just a few minutes ago that it would be, I think the board thinks that it would be all right for you to put the signage, apply for the signage approval later.
You don't even have to have signs other than street signs. I mean, realistically, there's no requirement for signage packages, no requirement technically, unless you have one that I'm aware of for internal circulation signage package. I think it makes sense. I think it's something that's necessary, but I don't believe that there's a requirement. There's no requirement on our end that you have any of that signage. It's a road, it's a development, it needs a road name, as far as I know.
You just need to do as Jim suggested, and that's to note on your plans that you'll be working on that, and it's not.
Yeah, and the Ruby Plains might be a good model for you, if we can take a look at them. It's just that the amount of signage that's allowed is so small, and that the zoning law encompasses everything, not only just directional signs, but like even a sign on a door or something like that is included.
And that just came up through that recent CBA application.
Yes. So I guess ultimately, again, not to beat a dead horse, but we do have, signs on the site plan already. So I just trying to understand how that fits with.
I think you can talk to
I-
Jim.
I'm
Let's,
going-
let's talk to Jim and others offline.
I'd go into CAD and just turn that layer off myself, but,
So I have a motion and a second, and do we have a vote? Okay, then, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So speaking of signs, the last order of business this evening is the ZA sign referral for Rhinebeck and Chas on Rhinebeck.
So we got a new sign application for Winnicke. We put in comments at the July 7th planning board meeting. The planning board requested a simpler sign that makes the name of the park a prominent element. If the design, the sign is designed to highlight the park name, is done as an in-kind replacement and able to utilize the grandfathering element. If such was available, the planning board would be amenable to facilitate in-kind replacement for the sign permit process to not require variances. As there have been many discussions in the past about sign size and is public use. I took a look at this. If you take a look at my memo, it appears to me that the same sign was proposed, they just shrunk it. So, so it's gone from 42 by 30 to 28.5 by 20, but it's the same sign, the same layout, and essentially haven't addressed the comments I don't believe that you had made previously.
So I will repeat the same comments.
Appreciate the size reduction, but essentially repeat the other comments about the design.
It still looks like a Winnicke Land Trust office. It still doesn't highlight that you're going to a park.
Are they renaming it?
I know, that was,
Like, are they renaming it from Burger Road to?
I think it was always Drayton Grant, was it always, John?
Yeah.
It's on the sign now.
It's just not.
Well,
It's on the sign now, but it's
certainly after Drayton's death.
Yes.
Right.
And while it's important to retain it,
Well, just last week, there was a multi-car accident in front of the entrance. They do need a sign, and it's more important that they advertise the site than who they are.
I think that was captured on the last comments, correct?
all right, do we have a motion to essentially reiterate our original concerns of appreciation for the reduction in the size? So and encourage them to continue to respond to ideas that we're bringing forward.
I'll second.
Thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion to adjourn? So please.
Sean, are you going
Are we adjourned?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
no one seconded, no one seconded.
Right.
Second.
So we don't-